let's go to the Reds today. This was a very profitable team for yours truly last year. And again, the win total last year was 78.5. That was one of the first plays I think both you and I put in this time last year. And I always say it, I'm looking for a team that might get 5 wins over that total. They got just about that, 4.5 more to 83, and then had some longer shots and then making the postseason. They got there in the last day of the regular season at the expense of my Metropolitans. What do we make of this year? Look at that win total. It's up 3 full wins from a year ago, from 78.5 to 81.5. Do you think that adjustment is proper?
Gosh, this was one of the hardest win totals for me. I waffled back and forth, and I made it just a lean to the under 82.5 in the VSiN MLB betting guide. Here is where you look for the upside. Number one, if this rotation stays even remotely healthy, like I'm talking, if you can get Hunter Greene, Brady Singer, Andrew Abbott, Nick Lodolo, if those guys can at least get you 25 starts apiece, you are absolutely in business. And I know that's super conservative. If you get them, all 4 of those guys, upwards of 28 to 30 at least, and then you have Chase Burns as your number 5 starter, Dave, that's where you start to dream on the possibilities for the Cincinnati Reds. Now, that being said, we know that the injury bug has plagued this particular rotation in many, many ways the last handful of years. So that was part of my caveat of really having to take a second look at maybe the over in their win total. As someone who has pitched in the Great American Small Park, the Great American Launching Pad there, when the weather starts to get much more humid and the ball is going to the jet stream of right center and left center field, the addition of Eugenio Suarez back to this lineup, I thought was so critical, not only from a continuity standpoint and lineup protection for Elly De La Cruz and some of the other bats in the middle, but also the camaraderie. And Dave, sometimes there are puzzle pieces to teams where that locker room just gels. He was a fan favorite. He was beloved by teammates at every stop he's been on. And it just so happens that his first tour of duty in Cincinnati, Reds were pretty damn good. So very bullish on what he could mean as a 1-2 punch with Elly De La Cruz in the middle. Couple of guys to keep your eye on in the lineup. Sal Stewart is going to get a lot of headlines here. Their young rookie phenom that at one point it looked like he was going to be kind of that starting, DH, but now with Suarez in there, that would slide him to first, and then we'll see what happens with Spencer Steer because there's kind of a domino effect there. I am hearing exceptional things about Matt McClain in this spring training. Remember, just 2 years ago, Dave, he was kind of that cornerstone, that foundational piece with Elly De La Cruz. Like, okay, here are the 2 guys that we can build this offense around for years to come. He's made a swing adjustment. He's made kind of a stance adjustment too. And that has really been very, very encouraging from these early couple of weeks of spring training games. That's a name to keep an eye on. Back end of their lineup, Noelvi Marte, who did a great job in right field last year. He is going to stay there. Brian Hayes, the Gold Glover at third. That allows Eugenio Suarez to not have to play there. He can be the full-time DH. J.J. Bleday, a very intriguing signing, former Vandy boy, and also a member of the Athletics. He hit in the middle of their lineup for many years until they were able to get the lineup that they have right now with Brent Rooker and obviously Tyler Soderstrom and company. He's going to be able to kind of be hidden, if you will, towards the bottom, but he lengthens the lineup. He'll be great defensively and left. And then you got one of the more underrated leadoff hitters in TJ Friedl, who will set the table. I would envision that Tito Francona would probably get some sort of speed on base combination in front of Elly De La Cruz. Anxious to see what lineup construction will be like for them moving forward. But Dave, this is a lineup that was right at league average, just above league average in runs scored. The power wasn't really there all of last year. Does it return this year? If it does, the Reds are alive and well if that rotation stays healthy.
In the end, they cashed every ticket that I had on them, but they were frustrating to get there because they lost a bunch of 1-0 games. They could not score early in the year, as we talked about on this program a lot last year. And Matt McClain was one of those guys watching every night, like, dude, what's going on? And Terry Francona very, very well. And I saw him adjusting McClain last year in the lineup, going from the 2-hole 8-hole, 9-hole, you name it. Like, I got to move him out of this spot. And you don't want to wreck a guy's confidence here. Where do you think they put McClain? Because I'm with you. If this team is going to, whether they cash a ticket to plus 425 to win the Central, to make a run at a pennant at 22-1, right? Cash that over ticket at 81.5. I do think McClain is that key guy that people won't talk about because all look at De La Cruz and everybody else in the pitching staff. That if they can figure him out, do they put him back at the 2-hole? Because he did offer some pop there a couple of years ago early in that lineup.
It makes the most sense to me, Dave, we having Elly behind him and knowing you still have the speed of Friedel and McClain. You're not going to clog that with Elly's elite speed. So you've got, a real dynamic top of the order there, and those are great table setters in front of Elly De La Cruz, in front of Eugenio Suarez. As I mentioned, anxious to see if the youngster in Sal Stewart, hits 5th or 6th. Tyler Stevenson, remember, he's got pretty good pop from the catching spot. Will there be sort of a platoon when you have Spencer Steer? He was a guy that hit in the middle of the order a lot. Remember, Will Benson was a key part of their outfield. So they have some depth pieces there. It is, I think, a much more balanced lineup than maybe they get credit for. Back into the bullpen, Dave saw 2 really outstanding individual performances. Emilio Pagan really took that closing role and was one of the best in the business in 2025. Tony Santillan, one of the better leverage relievers too as a setup man. That's the 1-2 punch. Here is the big addition that I think is going to prove as a difference maker. Pierce Johnson, who is a free agent signee from Atlanta. I think he can team with Brock Burke, who came over in a trade with the Angels. Caleb Ferguson, the veteran, you'll remember him, well-traveled veteran. He was in Seattle at the end of the season. Graham Ashcraft has kind of been a converted starter into a leverage reliever. They've got the pieces, man. They really do. It's really all about health for this group. You've got the Hall of Fame manager in Tito. He's going to press all the right buttons. And if you want to look at just kind of a line of demarcation, Terry Francona, since 2013, has had the most wins in the second half of any active manager, okay? He knows how to make those key adjustments, and in crunch time there, when you got to be winning into the trade deadline and then the sprint to the finish in August and September. I wrote in our betting guide, Dave, this was my outlook. The offensive output can't mirror its 2025 results, or this team is destined for a 500 campaign trying to win a bunch of low-scoring games, which you alluded to. If they get the early offense and they get sustained health out of that rotation, my oh my, is the sky the limit, I think, for the Cincinnati Reds.
And that's where I am on I don't have any tickets on them this time this year. Last year, we had a bunch of them already in pocket here. As my biggest play on the board was at over 78.5 wins. And that really, it was a bit of a sweat for a while, but they ended up getting there relatively easily in September. That part of that was the belief in Tito Francona, that Terry would get this thing figured out. And he did, to your point, in the second half, where they really made that push. So if they get off to a better start, am I going to look at that and go, why didn't I bet this team again this year? Because I do. I look at it the way you do, and I think everything on paper looks good. You got a manager I can trust. If you can get the health, there really doesn't seem to be a whole lot of weaknesses with this baseball team.
And Hunter Greene's going to be right in that Cy Young competition. It was a breakout campaign for him last year. And man, if you like a lot of swing and miss and a lot of free air conditioning, Great American Ballpark, when the Reds starters are on the mound, that's going to be the place to be.
I might need to be invested in those Reds again. I just like this baseball team a lot, and I like rooting for Terry Francona as well.